Welcome, YouTube and Facebook friends, to our remote broadcast. We are here at the majestic Alley Theater for the Big Read. And we're really glad that you're joining us. It is remote. We're coming to your living room, but you are coming to our house for art and teatro, the Alley Theater. This is part of a national campaign called the Big Read, and we're calling it specifically for you, the Alley Theater, El Zócalos, ni de aquí ni de allí. Neither from here nor there. Cuentos y Charlas. Now, here's the deep question we're going to address. We're going to count on you to help us figure this out. What happens when the American dream isn't for everyone? Today, we'll be joined by mental health experts and community leaders and writers and thinkers as they unravel the social and economic issues surrounding the notion of the American dream, separation of families, and the feelings of belonging that are found in the amazing book, which is the center of the Big Read campaign, The House on Mango Street by La Mera Mera, Sandra Cisneros. Applause, please, out there. And the Alley Theater's upcoming production of 72 Miles to Go, as well as, and this is going to be a treat, we're going to get to talk to the director of the play, Jose Zayas. So right now, you better be texting your tias, your comadres. Tell them to tune in right now. And I want to remind folks, there are a lot of people working together to get this to you. The NEA Big Read is brought to you by the Alley Theater, El Zócalo, and this program has been made possible by a national grant from the National Endowments for the Arts in partnership with Art Midwest. Now, I'm really excited about this next guest. It's an honor to have a Latino creative joining us to discuss this wonderful play. I'd like to introduce Jose Zayas, the director of 72 Miles to Go. Jose, it's really a pleasure and honor to have you here, especially as you give us the behind the scenes on mounting this incredible work. Bienvenido.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's a pleasure, Tony.
Fantastic. And we really are excited to see this evolution of the play, because we've seen a little bit of it before here at the LA Theater. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure, yeah. We did a workshop of it in January of 2019. Hilary Bettis and I were invited to do it as part of the LA New Play Festival. We spent 3 weeks doing it, just sort of figuring out the specifics of the play, what it was. You know, we had a lot of questions about it. And we performed it for a couple of performances as part of the festival. And it was a really great, wonderful experience. The audience was really moved, and I think what we were all struck by was how resonant it was to the audience here, particularly a young audience. There was a beautiful student matinee where I think people were really touched by the stories, and most importantly, the story was happening to people here. The kids were talking about the experiences with their neighbors, their friends, people in their school who had been experiencing these separations and the anxiety that the play really talks about. So for us, it just felt like, what a beautiful, we rarely get those. And we really get that kind of immediate response. And, it was memorable for all of us. And it's very exciting to be actually presenting the play now and to be doing it fully.
I love it. I was privileged to watch that. And I don't want people to take this experience for granted. How often do people get to see a workshop version at a major institution like the LA Theater and then get to see the next level of production? Is that common, or should we really, really appreciate this experience?
I think it's a really unique experience. Obviously, if you're like the kind of theater girl who's very adventurous and you want to go to new play festivals, you are experiencing works in different stages of development. So ultimately, it's like you are part of the process. Like the input that we get from people in the audience is something that will affect the play. We'll be asking questions based on what happened in that performance. So it is unique, and I think anybody who joins it will sort of be really excited to see how this play is shaped. And the difference between obviously what happens in a workshop and what happens in production is night and day, and anybody who goes through both will be able to experience how the play grows, hopefully.
That's fantastic. No, I'm really happy that Houstonians, and of course, right now, folks who are tuning in remote from all over the country can hear about this. But I love that it's our youth, like you mentioned, our familias, and people from here in Houston that get this full-fledged experience. So I'm going to lean on you for a little bit more behind the scenes. Tell us a little bit about the design and what went into the production. Like, simple things like painting the fence, painting the desert, which folks may not understand is a big part of this production.
Sure. I mean, well, the play takes place over 10 years, and it's basically a play that is told in fragments. You follow this family as a mixed status in, over a 10-year period. And so the difficulty of it is like, where does this take place? How do we move the story in a way it's a very cinematic telling of it? How do we make sure that people understand that time is passing without any sort of obvious signifiers like projections or anything like that? So we came up, we wanted to maintain, I think the most important thing of the play is the intimacy of it. So we decided to do it in the round. And the round allows us to be witness to it, to be witness to each other experiencing it. It also brings everybody closer together in the space. So once I think we decided that, everything was about developing around that. So we just created a simple tile floor that will serve as kitchen, as different rooms, as a church. And sort of as it progresses, furniture comes in and out, things move and shift. But, I'm not giving too much away necessarily, but as the play progresses, we do end up in the desert, and there's a grand transformation. But I think it's very simple, but hopefully you'll have a grand impact where, this beautiful material, this cloth is laid out across the space, and then the characters have these final moments in the desert. I think it's been beautifully designed. We're thinking about how we go from cityscapes and urban dwellings into a sort of a more open environment. It's what the play is asking of us as well. It's a play that I think starts claustrophobically, but then sort of becomes larger and larger and ultimately opens up. And a lot of the design is focused on suggesting these places very simply, very poetically, and hopefully in a way that will really be powerful for everybody who watches it.
I like that you broke that down because I do remember that about the play. And before you show us the videos of the design for the fence and the desert, let me ask you a quick question. Explain to folks what "in the round" means, because even as you mentioned it, I realized that was a really intense way to make the audience feel like they were part of the experience.
Well, in the round, what's interesting is that because when you saw it, actually, it was in a thrust configuration. Thrust is basically the audience is on three sides with the stage in the center. So what we've done is we've actually done it in the round, which means that the audience is on all four sides. So it's even more intimate and sort of you're watching everything. You're watching yourself watch it. You're watching friends watch it. I think it creates a very different idea of what spectatorship is and ultimately complicity. But I think it's one of the most exciting ways I think to tell stories. There are a lot of challenges staging and to figure things out. But ultimately it's just sort of putting everyone around the action.
I love it. Well, let's take a look at that film right now.
Awesome.
Very cool. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, that's what you're seeing is the entrance to the theater has this corrugated sort of metal panels that sort of suggest what the border is, suggest what Alice versus Tucson is. And so it's a little part of it. And what you saw is sort of one of the great artisans at the Alley painting it little by little. You're seeing how it's going from a brand new material to something that's more rusted. And I think in the next video that we will be seeing, you'll actually be seeing a quick view of how the desert drop has been created and how it's been painted.
But look. That's so cool. Tell us a little about what's going on in there.
I know, it's hours and hours of work. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, we get to see it from above. Usually when we're in rehearsal, we just sort of walk in there, look at a window above the scene shop, and it's very inspiring. It's been really great to see it come together.
This just gives us a little glimpse of all the care, imagination, and all the talent that goes on. I don't want to even say behind the scenes. That's in the scene. I mean, the scene's on top of it. There's layer upon layer upon layer, isn't there?
Yeah, no, it's pretty remarkable the work that gets done in this place. I think we're dealing with some of the tough, best crafts people in the country. It's one of the best theaters to work at, I think, because of that. And I think that the care that goes into that will hopefully be reflected in everything that we do and everything that the audience will see when it comes to the show.
And it does. I tell you what, folks, when it's happening in front of you, it's a very powerful experience. Now, we got to show some love to the playwright,
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
a writer, so we got to throw a lot of tiramos muchas flores a los escritores.
Wow.
I understand you have some words from Hilary Bettis for us.
Yeah, here we go. That's how Hilary's going to tell us a little bit about what her process was and what she's been up to. So.
Hi, I'm Hilary Bettis, writer of 72 Miles to Go. This is a story about a family separated by deportation. But I wanted to focus on the quiet, intimate, everyday moments of profound joy and love and resilience and loss that don't make our news cycle. Growing up, weddings, anniversaries, and how hard a family has to fight to stay connected. So what did I do during the pandemic? I had a baby. It's been quite a roller coaster. I'm very sleep deprived. The thing that I am looking most forward to about being back in the theater again is really just being in a room with real people and artists who I love and admire and respect. I can't wait to be back at the ALLÍ, which is my home away from home, and I cannot wait to share this play with you.
That is awesome. That is great to hear how she loves the ALLÍ, like we all do, but how much emotion she's getting across. I can't wait to see this play. And I'm taking for granted that we haven't been able to experience live theater because of the shutdown. Are you fired up about this, Jose?
Oh, totally. I mean, I've been going through lots of different processes throughout the pandemic and, in different states, and everybody's been opening differently. So for me, it's always really exciting to be in the new space, working with people that Hilary says we really respect and collaborate really well with. I think the play has changed because of everything that we've gone through over the last 20 months or so. Hilary is looking at the play differently because she's a mom now. So even the stuff that she was so good at writing, and how families come together and fall apart and how they need each other, and all of that has become even more acute and more precise for her. So a lot of the work that's been in the rehearsal room has been about how she's been hearing it as a mother for the first time, and that we're watching that has been really kind of remarkable, really great.
Man, mira, Jose, I'd love to monopolize your time. I could talk to you for 3 hours, but we got to share you.
We do,
and we
yes.
have some folks that are way smarter, more interested than I am. We have a great list of panelists this evening. You're going to help us drive the conversation on these important topics. I'd like to welcome Mary Ann Brown of Raíces, Unidas and Cesar Espinosa of FIEL. Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your group.
So hi, Tony. Thank you for having us. So my name is Marianne Brown, and I'm the founder and president of Raíces Unidas. We're a grassrooted organization here in the Houston area, and we've had the privilege to serve over 200 families in the little time that we've been open. And so basically what we do is we connect families or people to resources. And so serving in the community, I found out that there's a lot of resources available, but not a lot of people know that they're there. So that's basically what we do. We connect people to the resources that they're in need of based on the need.
That's great. Thanks for all you do for the community. Cesar, tell us a little bit more about FIEL.
My name is Cesar Espinosa, and I'm executive director of FIEL. A lot of people know us for the work that we do with the immigrant community, with students, but also a lot of people know us because of the trouble that we make. We make good trouble, necessary trouble with people like Tony and other folks around the Houston area, advocating for immigrant families, for Latinos, for the arts, for whatever needs we need to bring attention to. So we're very happy. I myself am a dreamer. So I was also lucky to see this play in 2019 during that time, and really hit me home. And I invite everybody, even if you're in another part of the country, come down to Houston, come down to the ALLÍ, There's great things happening here, and there's definitely a great play being put on with 72 miles to go. So I invite everybody, and if you come here, we'll give you the best taco and food recommendations you'll ever have in your life, because Houston's where it's at.
No, I appreciate you as an activist, appreciate you here as an artivist today. So that's awesome. Also joining us are Jose Avalos of Creative Vida, Maria Kavanagh from the University of Houston Hispanic Alumni Association, Go Cougs, and Al Castillo, president of LULAC Council 60. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your group.
Yeah, so mi nombre es Jose Avalos. I'm the president and co-founder of Creative Vida. Our mission statement is to educate and empower youth through creative experiences. One of those experiences is a program we host called First Gen, which is a scholarship program for first-generation college students. My team does our best to think about all the challenges and barriers that first-generation college students face, and then we create workshops around that to give them the tools and resources that they need to overcome them. I'm really excited to be here. Vengo representando a Guadalajara in Mexico. And I'm grateful to be around all these powerful voices, so thank you.
Fantastic. And our next guest, I'm going to preface by saying I started teaching when I was 5 years old, but Maria Kavanagh was once my student. So tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing now. Great to see you again.
Good to see you, Tony. My name is Maria Kavanagh. I am a board member with the University of Houston Hispanic Alumni Association, Go Cougs. And, and what we do is we host several events throughout the year to fundraise, and all of the money that we raise goes straight to Latino students at the university. And we also provide networking opportunities for them. I'm also a dreamer, like Cesar. I was undocumented for 22 years, from the age of 2 to 24. So this story hit very close to home for me.
Great. Well, it's great to have your input tonight. And next is Al Castillo, president of LULAC Council 60, of which I'm a member, so he outranks me. So if he rips the mic out of my hands, that's why.
Hey, everybody, I'm Al Castillo. Bali, thanks so much for assembling this here panel. There's a lot of smart people here. I think we can make a lot of progress in the way of advancing our community and leveling out the playing field. So, I mean, leveling out the playing field so we can get a fair shake. As a community, we're not asking for anything exorbitant. We just want a fair shake. We want to be able to advance our community into the future.
Thank you, President Castillo. And to complete our panel for today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Carmen Martinez of NAMI Greater Houston. Great to have you here. Tell folks what NAMI stands for.
NAMI is National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I represent the Greater Houston affiliate. We have over 600 affiliates, and what we do is we provide free educational classes, resources, and support groups to the community in 3 different topics.
Fantastic. Well, what a great, august group of gente we have with us. And we're going to dive into this, but of course, if you're watching right now, we want you involved as well, because these works are very, very gripping. So let's dive right in. At the top, we're going to talk about dual realities. Now, in the play, 72 Miles to Go, which I hope you're going to see, maybe for the second time, some of the characters have 2 names, all right? Can anybody relate already? You know, you got the name in English and the name in Spanish. We may not get past this first question, but ahí vamos. And you know, this represents the dualities of our culture, the plurality of our experience, and you wind up speaking one way with your family, you adapt with your friends, you adapt for work. In the book, The House on Mango Street, you have the protagonist actually talk about how she doesn't like her name in Spanish, and she'd prefer Xena with an X, you know, in it as well. And the question is, how is this duality a challenge, but also a source of power? So since she was my former student, I should probably give her extra credit. I'm going to give her extra credit if she answers first. You want to go first?
Sure. I think for me personally, you know, like I said before, I was undocumented. So I had, I was this different person at home than I was at school. I carried myself differently. I did have a nickname that I was embarrassed for my sister to use that nickname with me at school. And it was very challenging because you almost feel like you're living this double life, or like you have to adapt, you have to not impress everyone, but like kind of hide the fact that you're undocumented, make everyone think that you're normal or like the same as everyone else.
Yeah, let's say typical, not normal.
Right,
because-
yeah, typical.
Mhm.
So, I mean, a lot of my friends growing up didn't know I was undocumented. There was a lot of shame with that for me. I feared that they would think that I was, inferior, or just feelings of just not being up to par. Yeah, it can be very challenging, but at the same time, you also learn to adapt. You learn to empathize with people.
Is that the power of
Yeah,
this?
you learn to empathize with different people who don't look like you, who don't think like you.
And as you pass the mic to someone, I'm gonna let you pick. Let me add that. What's very touching about what you're saying is that, of course, your sister loving you has su propio nombre para ti, the nickname. So she's got to really change her heart and understand, okay, there's different language out there and out here. So that is deep and profound. If this ain't touching your heart, we just started. So get on the keyboard, send us a little love note, a question, let's communicate. Dale,
Well,
pues, Jose.
yo hablo entonces del poder entonces de ser bicultural. Me gusta usar esa palabra porque mi lista en Spotify de música, la mexicana es long, pero también la de country es long. Igualito como me gusta, comerme unos tacos aquí en la Edgebrook o algo así, pero también me gusta un chicken country fried steak, and I can associate to both. So I do see it as a power that we have those. Mi familia me dice Junior porque mi papá se llama José también, and anybody outside of that calls me Junior, it's really weird to do that. But I do see it as a power. Sometimes it's a challenge for sure. Just people, like you said, just by looking at you right away, thinking you might be a little bit less. Pero gracias a Dios, pues hay mucha gente que está peleando esa batalla, so that we, like you said, we all get a fair share at the American dream, and to doing great things in this world.
And I like what you say. I mean, I think families can relate to, well, no, universally, you're Junior at home, and every culture has that pet name. It's different somewhere, so that part's universal. As you pass it on, how do you say Spotify in Spanish? Spotify. Como el Facebook. Ponle el Facebook.
Como el Face. I'll go next. I think I can split up my duality into three major parts of my life. One was, growing up when I first got here, we were told, act American, like learn English. Kind of forced into that. Don't tell anybody you don't have papers because they're going to call immigration on us. Kind of forced into that segment, right? Then I began my organizing activism career at the very old age of 15 years old. So then I was trying to prove myself to the rest of the activist community, saying, even though I'm young, here I am, and I'm in your face. And then I would show up to meetings, and people would be like, "Who's this kid? Wait, and why is he here? And why does he always talk so much?" And then now I live in a weird world where I'm balancing like the activism world, but also the political world. But personally, I also, it's funny when a lot of people knew me, they think I'm really mean and I'm really angry all the time. Because usually when people see me at a press conference or something like that, I'm always mean and angry because that's my role at the time, right? But then when I go home and I'm with my family, with my kid and my wife, I'm always, I like to just, watch, the other shows, the Netflix. I know all the kiddie songs by now because I have a 3-year-old who plays Baby Shark till my ears bleed out. But here we are. So I feel like we always live as Latinos, but as people, we also live in very different worlds. And I think that's something we can all kind of come together on.
And I think to capture too that in the media context, they imagine us one way. So the only way to get that moment to spread the word is to act that way. But at the end of the day, we're human.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And who is next?
So I guess I can relate. I have like 5 different names. I
A
mean,
ver, oh, de verdad? So we didn't get your nickname. Can we get the 5 names? Have we earned the 5 names?
so in corporate America, I'm Marianne. At home, I'm Anita, because in Spanish is Mariana, and so I look like my mom, and it's my mom's name, so they call me Marianita or Anita. I have Latino friends that call me Mari. You know, I have friends at work that call me Mary. So I have all kinds of names. So I got used to that double personality. You know, at home me están echando en español y en el trabajo en inglés. So I have to like turn one switch off and turn the, you know, when I get to, it just depends what role I'm in, you know? And so, but I think that we're very fortunate because, you know, we get to experience the best of both worlds. I mean, with every pro, there's a con, right? And so, yes, growing up, like my mom was undocumented. And so that was our fear growing up, that, you know, if my mom is taking too long, why is she taking too long? Why is she not home yet? You know? And that was the constant fear, you know, as a teenager. And so she didn't become a citizen until I was, I think, 21. So my entire childhood, and even, you know, as a teenager, that was my fear. You know, it's my dad, who is, you know, American, 5th generation Mexican American, who barely even speaks Spanish, with my mother, who is undocumented and doesn't speak a lick of English. So, I mean, I got to experience both sides of it. But I feel like, you know, with all of those struggles at the end, we're very fortunate because we get to experience the good, you know, the good side of both. You know, we're American and we're Mexican as well. At least I'm Mexican as well. And so I'm very fortunate that I get to experience both of those sides.
I love that you brought the corporate world into this, because everyone so far has brought a whole different
Right.
background,
And-
experiences.
And so the corporate world for me, I very much, and to this day, I still, you know, suffer from imposter syndrome because soy Latina. You know, I'm younger than most. I work in healthcare, and so I'm a director for 2 hospitals. And so,
Manda, oh yes, la jefa.
and so when I'm in a boardroom, it's not only a male dominant area, but it's also, you know, Caucasian, you know, and so being Latina, younger, and a female is like triple whammy, you know. And then, you know, a veces se me sale lo Monterrey. So I'm speaking and my accent comes out, you know, so that's another, you know, ding on top of that. But you know what? I'm bilingual. They're not. So, you know, and we live in a city where, you know, Latinos form a huge part of the city. So, you know what? They need me. They need me. They need my second language.
I love it. So the plurality we were born with, that we used to survive will now help us thrive.
Exactly.
I love it. I'm going to explain our bilingual translating policies. We passed it to our last. Oh, you have a microphone over there. Anyway, I will explain our bilingual translating policy. We're not going to translate anything, okay? Because everybody's code switching right and left. And if we explained everything in the other language, the show would be twice as long. So hang in there, enjoy it, and feel free to use Spanglish when you throw your comments down. Cuéntanos.
Lo único que quería decir es la historia que estoy escuchando como inmigrantes. Tenemos ese fear de que nos van a cachar, que van a pasar algo con los padres. Entonces eso afecta a la salud mental de jóvenes, porque bastante de nosotros o gente vino de inmigrantes jóvenes, vino las madres con los hijos. Entonces ese fear pasa para tus días adultos. Entonces algo que nunca hablamos, tenemos esos sentimientos, pero nunca hablamos de lo que está pasando. El estrés te puede causar depresión, te puede causar ansiedad. Entonces, todo como inmigrantes y como latinos, hicimos esa experiencia de estas emociones mentales y eso es algo que como los latinos no hablamos. Entonces, cuando pasan las cosas como adultos, es cuando comenzamos a mirar, oh man, I'm suffering from this, pero es algo porque todos teníamos esa experiencia de inmigrantes que pasamos todo ese fear, ese constant fear. Y eso no se los quita hasta que ya nos ponemos de ciudadanos y ya estamos como, oh wow, finally we belong.
Well, and I'm glad you're bringing that up too, because I think we're going to hear a lot about we're demanding representation. I think the work by Sonora Cisneros, the House on Mango Street, dramatizes it, and then here we have the play that dramatizes it, and that's another catharsis, no?
Claro, claro. Entonces lo que tenemos que hacer es educarnos en esas expresiones emocionales y aunque ahorita tal vez no pensamos, ya estamos de ciudadanos, ya estamos en el corporate world, pero todas esas tramas nos afectan, no es algo que se va y es algo que en nuestra cultura no podemos hablar porque siempre sale ese estigma. Entonces, más adelante podemos hablar de otras cosas de eso, pero escuchando todos, tenemos la misma historia.
That's fantastic. Al Castillo, what are your thoughts on
You're going
this?
to ask me this question? How can I follow all of these guys? I mean, I have more than two names. I have more than two personalities. What the young lady said here, yeah, you change gears. I've been in corporate, I've been in labor, you know, I've been in the community. I didn't really have to step through all those minefields when I was growing up. So my opportunity was a little bit advanced because I was born here, and my, you know, we're a couple generations in now. You know, I did pretty much. I mean, I could have gotten a higher education, which I didn't. I joined the maritime, and then I moved, and I went to see the world, and I moved out. So I got a lot of this interaction with the other cultures around the world. And when I came back, I knew it was time to give back to the community. So I met Tony. I go, Baldy, I go, look, you guys are going with me. So, and we're going to make some things happen. And I see a whole lot of young people here with a whole lot of smarts. I think we're on to something, and I think it's a great idea. You know, what you've managed to pull us all together, Baldy. So, and Tony, of course, you know, you, sir, yes, sometimes you can be a firebrand. Have you seen him in action?
Oh, yeah.
So all these components add
Al
up.
is reading from the script I gave him. Good job.
No, the real question is, has he seen in actions? Have you seen us in action together?
And
Together.
So I mean, all these components, that's going to add up to something. We cannot. What you guys are saying, and the fear and the trepidation that you experienced through your childhood, trying to get to being made whole as a U.S. citizen, that's intimidating. How can we get on that? Because immigration needs to have comprehensive reform, and there's nothing short of that. We're going to have to stop this spin that we're on and start addressing these issues that affect immigration.
But that's an interesting point you brought up because, so I was born here in Chicago.
Right.
Who else was born in the States? Okay. It's a different experience than wondering about immigration status. My family was mixed status.
Yeah.
But I also think it's an interesting issue to bring up is, okay, so if you're 3 generations into that, what's your relationship to that part of the identity? And I also think too, for Mexican Americans, especially Chicanos, I admire the generations before us that stood up during the civil rights movement and still step up.
Absolutely.
Because somos ciudadanos, pero aquí estamos con nuestros hermanos inmigrantes, and you know, we're not going to be bullied that way, but we still suffer some of the same trauma along those same lines. And
I'm glad you mentioned that because I grew up right in the civil rights struggle. In 1965, my parents were also activists, and they were also LULACers.
Mm-hmm.
So
your legacy LULAC.
Yes, I am.
Wow.
Yes, I'm now the president of LULAC Council 60. I guess I failed to. I guess I did. I don't remember. So, yeah, those issues that they were trying to address and they were trying to get resolved exist today. We're fighting the same battles as we were 60 years ago. We got to get it together, people. And I spent most of the day on a Zoom with the Texas House of Representatives on the they call it redistricting. I call it gerrymandering because all it is just they're advancing their own. What am I trying to say, Tony? Their own
interests. This is what Alice wants to say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they're just trying to advance themselves and to keep onto that power. Our job is to try to figure out how not to let them do it so easily. Sorry, got my soapbox.
No, not at all. That's what this is for.
Okay.
I tell you what, I mean, I would love to keep talking about that. You know, some folks watching and get college credit for this, I think. But we're going to go on to our next question because I do want to find out more of the nuances. So in the play, 72 Miles to Go, Billy is a minister who meets his wife while breaking the law. Okay? Le está dando alimentos. She's helping her and other undocumented folks with food, water, shelter. Here's the big question. When you believe a law is unjust, should you break it? How does this decision get complicated if the person you're trying to decide this about is someone you love? And how far would you go to keep your family together? So these are some deep questions posed both by the work, the House on Mango Street by San Cisneros, and 72 Miles to Go. Anybody who would like to go first? Cesar jumped. Cesar just
No, I was gonna say that's a 3-hour question Tony just asked. But to sum it up, I mean, there's been very unjust laws, and when we see an unjust law, we want to change it. So we don't just want to break it, but rather we want to disseminate it and change it so it can be better. Or we can have a better law to replace it. And you know, a lot of folks forget that this country has had very bad laws: Jim Crow laws, slavery, et cetera, the school to prison pipeline. And so we have to take on these issues head on in order to fix them. Now, what we, you know, when you talk about like what would you go, what length would you go to keep your family together? We're seeing this play out in our border today. We see people who have come, you know, who travel miles for days with their kids, suffering. 87% of women who make that trek suffer some sort of sexual violence, or you know, a lot of violence against women. And that is the question that we already have the answer to. People are willing to go to those lengths, to risk their lives, to put everything in jeopardy in order to keep their families or make their families come together. So we want, you know, we don't believe that should be the way. We would like for things to change so that people can reunite with their families in a safe manner. And we want to continue to change the law so that things will happen much better and families can have a better future.
You mentioned it earlier. You were at 15. Sometimes our immigrant community said, hey, lay low, stay in the shadows. What compelled you to put your, you know, safety, well-being at risk and lean in to activism?
I think for us, if it goes back to the question that you asked of that duality, it's like, do I want to be somebody that I'm not, or do I want to be unapologetically myself? And so in 2007, after a very long fight with my mother, I told her, I'm going to say it out loud. And once I said that, it was a liberating, saying undocumented, I'm undocumented and unafraid was a liberating experience. And then that compelled a lot of young people to also emulate that and come out and come out of the shadows and say, we're here and you can no longer ignore us. So even though it took us a very long time to pass any sort of legislation or an executive action in 2012, we got DACA and we were able to provide at least a stop to deportation to about 800,000 undocumented youth. So that's a change in itself that we're very proud of.
That's powerful. As you pass it to someone else, what I want to add, is that we might have a question from the comments.
Jose would love to chime in on an answer to this question.
Excellent. Oh, Jose wants to speak. Okay, let's hear.
Oh my, no. I was saying, I was like, everybody has such amazing, powerful stories that I was fine just listening. Because my personal story, obviously, is that I'm Puerto Rican and Caribbean. I have my politics around what being a citizen right now are so very complicated, but for different reasons. But no, I just wanted to say that it's really wonderful listening to everybody talking about these things that do come up in the play, and the play does deal very subtly, I think, with the mental health issue, and that because it takes place over 10 years, you really see how it affects people. It never hits you over the head with it. What we're struggling with right now is really understanding how you live with that trauma and not aware of it. There are moments in the play that really sort of are turns, like how are you afraid of the police? How do you navigate the duality? How do you go outside every day? I think most people expect, if you're undocumented, that you're living with that all the time, that you don't live any other way. I'm like, no, you live. You continue to live. You love life. You have friends. You have family. And I think that this play is trying to figure out, as Hilary has said, it's about those intimate moments and those family moments, not just about the politics. And that it's asking all of these questions. There's a throwaway line, and it is a throwaway line, even though it sounds so deep, where one of the characters says, the system makes it, not the system, but they make it so hard to be a good person. And I think that's ultimately what the question the play is asking. It's like, you are good people, and then what does the system make these people do in order to stay together, in order to actually have a quality of life that we are all basically we should have the rights to.
That's beautiful. What do you think? I mean, you've dedicated your life to art, and we want people to come see this play for many reasons. It's a high-level work of art for aesthetic reasons. What role does art play in us coming to terms with these traumas, these estas dudas, inquietud? Someone mentioned imposter syndrome. What role, if any, does art have in it? Of course, that's a softball question because we know.
No, yeah. I mean, the imposter syndrome, you'll see it. You'll see it in the character of Eva as she goes from a high school student into sort of becoming a nurse. You'll see it in her. And it doesn't come out and say, I suffer from this syndrome, but you see it in her behavior. You see it in the way she has difficulty communicating or connecting with relationships, how she's struggling with trying to articulate what that background for her is. But ultimately, it's what the play is just trying to do is raise the questions. The play stops right before the beginning of the Trump administration. So it's basically saying that what's happening is a continuum. It goes through administrations. It's been happening for years. We understand that the system is broken, and it's just basically asking you to look at the very human cost of it. If you were there in this household with these people on any level, what would your experience be, and what would you ultimately do? I think ultimately it's just asking you to be empathetic and to hopefully it will be a call to action for some people, and it will create these moments where people can go out and change the system. But right now, I think it's really what we want to do is just let people live in the life of these characters and in the life of people who are going through the situation.
I want to give a commercial right now for 72 Miles to Go. The play will be in full production here at the ALLÁ Theater, where we're at right now, broadcasting remotely, and it runs from October 16th into November. If you want a discount, I'm your friend. Type in Nuestra Palabra in the promo code. But we want to make sure that the seats are packed. We want to make sure our gente gets to experience this. I want a whole generation of students to take for granted that they're going to meet wonderful Latino leaders, Latinas who are, bosses at the medical facilities, that, we got Boricua brother and sister directing. So this is one way to do that. And, we're bringing up some heavy duty issues. You're going to love it. It's a lot of great fun. I want to do one more commercial for the Big Read. So the ALLÁ Theater, of course, is part of the Big Read. And if you do pick up the house on Mango Street, I want you to do this at home. You can pick up the house on Mango Street, grab one of the vignettes, read it out loud, and I promise you, this is the level of discussion you're going to unleash. The last thing I'll say about the book, and I want to hear more of our responses from our friends, is that the author, Sandra Cisneros, she said she wrote the book so a cab driver could pick it up in his cab that got left behind and read any section. And she wrote it so that each vignette stand on its own. That is the case. So we're hoping that this will inspire you to pick up those works and experience this works and tell your stories. Who's next? Enough of my voice.
I wanted to just add to what he said, because we do, even now, I'm noticing with my own family, we do have generational curses because we don't talk about that trauma. And that's one thing, even as I'm listening to everyone's story, and we all share, that same story, is as we're feeling the fear because of, we're all have or know someone that comes from an undocumented background, even just the traveling part and the trauma that costs us through that, we're experiencing that, but we, as a culture, we just never talk about it. We never internally compartmentalize, that that's what's happening. So I think even now, for future immigrants that are coming and are put in tough situations, we have to just address either the parents, even with the children, address the conversation of like, how are you feeling? How has this change, or this change caused you to feel different emotions? And I think eso es algo que no no hablamos y sería algo bueno para que las generaciones futuras pueden expresarse un poquito más, porque esas dramas, aunque no se mire tan, es pequeño en el momento cuando estás, si viniste aquí pequeñito, como adulto eso te afecta. Entonces algo que él dijo, que como en el play, se mira el character going with different traumas and emotions, even as she gets older and she's established. Entonces siempre tienes esos en la mente, pero lo único bueno, como aquí nosotros en nuestra organización, nos llegan padres de hijos que tienen enfermedades de salud mental, pero cuando estamos, dilata un average de 8 a 11 años para hacer ese diagnosis. Entonces, cuando estamos mirando qué es lo que está pasando en ese momento o what happened before, estamos mirando que vinieron de una forma de trauma. Y eso es algo de que nosotros, nuestra organización, damos recursos gratis, damos clases gratis y damos grupos de apoyo gratis para sacar todo eso y también educarte en esas enfermedades mentales también.
And it's healthy, right? It sounds like healthy and beautiful, right?
Exactly.
And I wanted to piggyback off of her. She said how we don't, have conversations about those issues. And my daughter, she's now 17, and she's third generation, because I was born here. My mother came here to Houston at 15, undocumented. But even my daughter, being a third generation, she was affected by it. So much so that when we had her quinceañera, she said, "Mom, for my birthday, for my gift, I want a registration, a voter registration booth in my quinceañera." And that's what I want as a gift. And so that is where that was eye-opening. That was eye-opening to me, because I'm thinking to myself, Mija, you have, you're privileged, you have an education. You didn't have to deal with the struggles of, is your mom going to come home, from work? But it's still it's that generation, it transfers from generation to generation, and we just don't really talk about it. It's something that is very present still right now, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, but I think the beautiful thing is that the younger generation now is speaking up. So even now, like my niece was born here, she's third generation, and she saw the struggles because of the conversations of her mother and my mother and things like that. So I think now the beautiful thing is that for example, just the topic on mental health, the Latino younger community is speaking on the issues that they saw their mother and their grandmother or, further generations out. And those are the conversations that are beautiful now to speak on, because now it's open dialogue, and it's more questionable, like, well, how come I feel this or how come I didn't feel this? So I think it's a beautiful conversation to have.
That's great. And it goes back to the power too, so that somehow maybe our community perceives it as a weakness or admitting vulnerability. You're right, 6 generations from now, we should still be talking, we should be sharing, because those stories are beautiful, and that's the source of power as well.
Right. And so, I mean, it allows us to reflect, and we can reflect on, the generations behind us, their struggles and where we're at now, and for us to value where we're at now, to validate those struggles,
Love it.
Yeah, and I wanted to find, so I'll start by recognizing my privilege of being born here in the United States. Although my parents were immigrants, mi papá llegó como a los 15 años, creo que se cruzó multiple times. I had never really heard that story, and maybe in something like this that I read a few years ago, I set my dad down and my mom, and I was like, with my phone on record, and I was like, I want to hear your story.
That's great.
Tell me from cuando tenías 15 años, cómo llegaste, and don't leave any detail out. Where did you stay? How scared were you when you were in the back of a trunk of a car? Tell me all those things, because one day you're not going to be here, and I want my children to know that story. So para todos los que son primera generación here, les recomiendo pues que se sienten con sus papás y que tengan esa conversación, si tienen la bendición de todavía que estén aquí vivos.
¿Y cómo crees que eso tocará el corazón de tu hijo y su hijo un día escuchar esa historia?
Yeah, pues I wanted them to know this struggle, right? Because I didn't face that. I was born here. I didn't have to drive around worried about it. Pero gente muy cerca de mí todavía hoy en día tienen ese temor, pues, de qué va a pasar si no tengo licencia. Just a million different things. And we always grew up desde chiquitos. Mis primos que están en México, that they didn't have the ability to born. Porque yo no puedo ir para allá. Es que no tienen papeles. And as a kid, you don't know what that is.
Pero escuchamos esa frase all the
no
time.
tienes papeles.
All the time.
Yeah.
Okay, man. Wow. I never would have known that. it never affected me like that. I'm sure it's happened for generations. You know, we're trying to help our community along. You know, but one of the issues that we're not addressing wholeheartedly is mental health. So I'm having an epiphany. So as soon as I leave here, I'm going to get on the phone and we're going to make something happen, because not only we want to educate our people, we want to make sure that they have affordable housing, you know, but if they're being stressed by being here and trying to do the right thing and become a U.S. citizen, and they're having mental issues because of it, that's not cool.
But even, I mean, even U.S. citizens too, right?
Yes,
6 years,
everybody.
generations down the
Yeah,
line,
right.
it's healthy for our community to talk things up, to stare shame in the face, because it leads to pride and
Right.
whatnot. So I'll be interested in what you're going to do. We're going to check in with Al later on to see what he's going to do on this.
Okay.
And I think we have Kathy, break us.
Tony, yeah, we do have a great question from the chat as we are talking about young people in this conversation. The question from the chat is, what can we do to make sure our communities and educators in particular can empower the students, their students, in the ways that you mentioned? How can we activate them if it isn't happening at home, or to support what's happening at home?
I love it. I'm going to throw it to our folks, but I'm going to give a tweet answer. One, watch 72 Miles to Go. I'm not playing. It's in the artwork. Two, get the House on Mango Street by Sunday Snails into your home. Start that family library. I'm done. Who wants to take the question? Oh, yeah, and implement Mexican American studies and ethnic studies. I'm done.
I think that so also I'll tell you from experience what my experience was. My counselor was actually my counselor at the school was the first person that knew that I was undocumented. And the only reason why she knew, outside of my family, of course, the only reason why she knew that is because you said, Cesar, you got to apply for college. Number one question is social security number. Put it down here. And then I was like, so about that. And then it was a really scary moment in my life, but I said, you know, well, the truth is I don't have papers, et cetera, et cetera. So I think for educators, it's really important, especially in this day and age, especially in areas like Houston, where you have a large undocumented population, is to just openly talk about these things, start conversations, read the House on Mango Street in your class, and start real conversations about not only immigration issues, but LGBTQ plus issues, you know, race theory, a lot of things that a lot of people find scary, but we have to openly talk about these things in order to have people feel welcome and let them be who they are. So for many of us, we actually go out to schools. The shameless plug is if you want us to come out to your school and talk to your students.
Plug it. Tell them.
Send us a message at FIEL Houston on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. They're all up, back up. We just checked. So it's, you know, reach out to us and we'll go and give a financial aid presentation where we specifically include the portion of if you're undocumented, this is the step to follow. And a lot of the times, we are now the people who kids come out to first. And they say, hey, Mr., you know, can I talk to you afterwards? And we already know. And then I've never told anybody this, but I also don't have papers. And we lead by example and let kids know that it's okay to be undocumented, that there's no shame in it, and that we should all work together. But more importantly, we will provide scholarships and financial aid for those folks to be able to school. And we will talk to, yo regaño a los papás, because sometimes we're like, hey, we need your tax records, tax transcripts. And they're like, oh, ¿pa qué? Te lo vas a dar inmigración. And I always tell kids, if your parents don't believe you, come talk to me. I love regañando a los papás. And we do it, and we explain to them that it's important for them so that they can get a good college education.
I hope folks understand how real the struggle is.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
powerful. Quick question. So you trusted the teacher, though. That teacher that got you to be honest, you trusted them because you kept it. You literally were under the radar with all the other teachers.
Absolutely. I with her, I was able, with my counselor, I was able to tell her, and she really, I'm going to date myself here, but back in 2004, when I graduated from high school, there was no scholarships for undocumented students. There was no help. I actually got, I won't tell you all the full story, but got accepted into a bunch of Ivy League schools. And I remember being on the phone with their lawyer at one point, 18-year-old Cesar was on the phone with this attorney at an Ivy League school, and then they were like, "Well, there's nothing we can do for you because you're illegal, and good luck." And that's what I was told. So I ended up going to HCC, but all of that helped, finding power in that struggle to say, I don't want this to happen to any other kids. And what do we do to change that? How do we advocate so that other kids don't have to go through this? And that's when FIEL got started. And here we are, 14 years later.
I love it. As you press the mic on, if you're watching this, if you're a teacher, you have such power. And there's so many ways to build that trust, so many resources. We have all these folks here, different resources to help you out. So we appreciate you tuning in. And I think Kathy's got another question for us, perhaps.
I do have another comment in the chat in reaction to the conversation we're having now, that openly talking and real conversations are so important, and that political correctness has maybe wounded our ability to have gentle face-to-face conversations about some of these topics. What can we do to create more places, more safe spaces to speak to each other about these topics?
As we get the mic to someone, I want to say, again, I got to go back to the art. If you want to have a deep discussion with your family and friends, bring them to 72 Miles to Go. And if you want to take the conversation home with you, start that family library with the house on Mango Street. And just like Jose was saying, you're the scribe of the tribe. Maybe you got to be the one to build those up. But any techniques for how to get past, I mean, yes, you had that with the teacher you trusted. It was that moment, and you could speak to them in private. You go to a school, you set up a talk, and you speak to them in private. Other ways we can set up that moment where a student can desahogarse, quitarse esa inquietud, solicitar ayuda.
You got me on that one. I'm gonna defer to these young people here.
I think we have to just honestly, one of the main things that as immigrants or non-immigrants, right, is the power of knowledge and education. And I really think we just have to continue going to that question. Continue surrounding yourself with people that can give you that knowledge and information. There's tons out there, whether it's English or Spanish. I mean, the internet is a very powerful tool. But I really think just continuing the conversation of topics like this. You know, if you're undocumented, X, Y, and Z, where can I go? If you have a mental health crisis and you feel like you can't go get help, where can you go? So these are things that we provide also. We have what we call a warm line. It's a number in Spanish where you can actually call, not a crisis line, a warm line. Puedes llamar en español, el número es 713-970-4481. Y ahí puedes llamar y puedes hablar con cualquier persona. Solo te preguntamos tu nombre, no te damos tanta información, cualquier cosa que tú estás dealing with o necesitas de ayudas o recursos, nosotros te ponemos en la correcta path para ver qué recursos puedes necesitar. Bueno. Pero yo creo que es solo continuar estas conversaciones if there's a organization that just, does more awareness pieces and information. That's the things that we get. We get calls of, no sé dónde mi hijo está sufriendo de esto, no sé dónde ir. And so what we try to do is prevent it from the crisis mode. We want to prevent it and prepare you so you don't have to get into those crisis situations.
I feel like, and I think someone mentioned this, that, our youth now, they're fortunate and, they have it harder, like conversations, like the conversations that we didn't have growing up because it was just like taboo or you don't talk about those topics. Nowadays, our youth's a little bit more bold and more outspoken. And so they feel comfortable speaking about these tough topics. I feel like if you as a student or, as a teenager want to have these conversations, but you don't have you feel like you don't have a platform to actually have it, you be that platform, you be that person to bring it up, because just like, you're feeling like, hey, there's nowhere for me to unload this information. You don't know, maybe your friend next to you is feeling the same way, and they just don't have the courage to bring it up, and so if you feel that strongly about wanting to speak on it, and I guarantee you that more kids or more people around you are going to follow. Be the leader. No, you don't have to follow. Be the leader, and you'll have followers.
Just two things I want to add. Number one is we, as a dreamer, as an undocumented person, we all have that one dreamer moment where it was like, why me? Am I the only one? And through stories like 72 miles to go, you realize that you're not like when I watched the production that was here last year or in 2019 actually. I was like, I know we all face these things, and there's moments where I'm not ashamed to say it. I was like crying because I was like, that's my family, that was my community, those are the folks that we work with. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to open up that dialogue, is just to be open to it. And number two, I think it's important to make people feel comfortable and welcome, and talk about. And one of the ways we do this is by talking about the numbers. Just in Houston, and by the way, this is a shameless plug to Houston now. Houston, even though because of my status, I haven't been able to travel outside of the United States, I feel like the world has come to me by surrounding me with people from all walks of life, from all faiths, religions, food, everything, from all over the world. But Houston is such a diverse place. 1 out of every 4 people in Houston is foreign born. We have many of those folks are about 66% of those families are living in mixed status families, meaning that maybe mom and dad are undocumented, maybe one of the kids is, et cetera, et cetera. And just in the greater Houston area, we have 600,000 undocumented people, meaning that 1 out of every 10 Houstonians is undocumented. And when you tell people this, you realize that, you don't have to look too far to find somebody that's going through this. And there's folks around us, but more importantly, for somebody who is undocumented, we know that we're not the only one. So it's definitely not something to be ashamed of. Definitely not something. Oh, and one last thing, important to point out that also a lot of people say that immigration is a Latino issue. It's not. We have a huge Asian diaspora here. We have a huge diaspora from Vietnam. We have the largest Vietnamese community living outside of Vietnam. So immigration it's a worldwide thing. So I encourage anybody from anywhere you are, come watch this play, because you're really going to identify with it, because it touches on a lot of points.
Powerful. I'll also add too, that's why a lot of us are big advocates for ethnic studies, because this puts in the curriculum. And once you get these works out there, it starts the conversation. And finally, I think like many of you have said, once you start telling your own story, that's a very liberating moment. And then there's something to share. Maybe they don't have to say it to you in person. It's like, can you please read this? And you go on from there. Excellent. I'm going to look at Kathy, see how much time we got if we want up the third question. How much time we got left, Kathy?
We still have 10 or so minutes.
10 or so. I've got a third question, but I also don't want to leave out anything that you may have wanted to bring up, but we ran over.
I wanted to say something
Please.
About the question that you asked initially. What was the question?
The first one about the duality, how does it go from...
No, that's the second one.
The second was, if there is an unjust law, do you follow it blindly, or do you break it if you feel the conviction to break it?
Been there, done that. So, I mean, seriously, I think first of all, you think of a humanitarian aspect, and then don't tell nobody, I'll be back later or whatever, however you're going to figure that out. But we recently had a situation with some Central American refugees that were dropped in our lap near East End, and they called us, and we scrambled, my wife and I, Gracie, we scrambled to find them food, housing, caterers. I mean, as quick as we can to house these people. They were standing in the pouring rain, didn't have anywhere to go. So we went and we ushered them in, and we were trying to take care of them. And then, long story short, the health department came in because we had a caterer. And they go, well, you're going to have to talk to my supervisor. I go, well, okay. Here, take me right now, because I'm still doing it. So we fed these people. We gave them clothing. Of course, we tested them. We vaccinated some of them, and then they took off, and we haven't seen them since. But yes, it's a humanitarian. It's humanitarian. This is what your heart's going to tell you to do. This is what your conscience is going to tell you to do, and it's the right thing to do. Consequences come later.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I mean, you're going to say something? Oh, you moved the mic. Sorry, you moved the mic. You moved it past your neck. So, no. Well, I'll add this too. This is because we're talking about it. Kind of like with the numbers Cesar just mentioned. If you eat anywhere, at any restaurant in Houston, the folks serving you or bringing you the food or picking the food, you've been touched by this issue. We just don't talk about it. And to hear those numbers, when you hear hammers, when you hear hammers hitting nails and houses going up, you're hearing the echoes of this issue. And if it's this extent, our community is not represented in film, in media, in corporate news. Where are these stories supposed to go? Ourselves, us together. I do want to get to more of our panelists in our third question, but Kathy, is Jose still with us? I want to see if he wants to shed any more light, especially the Boricua experience. You know, we got a lot of Chicanos and Mexicanos over here, and our brothers and sisters de Puerto Rico, they have similar challenges, but different challenges as well. José, cuéntame un poco más de tu punto de vista, porque vamos a ver tu obra, pero quiero escuchar un poco más de tus pensamientos directos, tus opiniones.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Bueno, no, I mean, I'm like, I grew up in Puerto Rico. I'm a pure Caribbean boy, but mostly in the Virgin Islands and St. Thomas and the Dominican Republic. So I was living between countries already, and I came to the States for school. And I've been here since '92, focused on most of my time in New York after that. But yeah, I mean, I've as a director, I get a lot of work, obviously, that has to do with the border. I get a lot of work that has to do with immigration as a Latinx director. And I get a lot of work which is about a Puerto Rican identity. And there are overlaps, basically, about the duality, basically having to deal with, like, you know, how do you grow up if you're second, third, fourth generation right now, and you weren't taught Spanish? Where do you fit in within the community? What is your community? I'm even more removed from a lot of the people I know, like in New York, where I spent so much time, because a lot of the Puerto Rican artists who I work with there have never even been to the island. So they have sort of even a stranger removed from that. And of separation from their culture, from their language. A lot of the work is about trying to connect with that. For me, obviously, it does create a serious imposter syndrome. I think Puerto Rico psychology is pretty much about that idea. It's like you always feel lesser than, you feel like you don't really have a place, even though you do, but you're always sort of struggling to find that place, be it, you know, artistically, politically, whatever it may be. And it's always a challenge. And, you know, there is a mental health toll that it takes. It's taken for me, it's taken from my family and relatives. My parents don't speak the language. So that I, you know, something that we haven't talked about is how do you translate? How do kids actually, like, you know, when you're growing up, you learn to code switch, and you also learn to translate for your family, which puts a lot of like weight on you as a child, and you sort of grow up very, very quickly. So all of these texts, I think, right now being written by primarily a lot of like third generation artists, I think are really tackling that with like, what is the identity? What is our identity, and how do we connect to our family, and how do we move forward, and how do we create environments for us to be able to have this conversation? I think this is a great space for it. I think the theater is an amazing space for it. And that, you know, however we do it, when artistically, when we're not doing it in a way that's didactic, it's my preference. And I hope that, you know, we can continue to shed light on that, because there's so many stories to tell. I mean, just everybody on the panel story is already so unique and so special. And I just hope we can keep creating those opportunities for us to be able to, you know, break those boundaries, break those borders, and just sort of realize that we're all like just struggling and asking for the same things.
Well, we appreciate you dedicating your life to helping us all find that vision through art. So thank you for all that you do, Jose. Really excited to have your play coming out here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
A ver, I'm going to look at Kathy. Kathy, how many minutes do we have left? We may just have enough time for each panelist to tell us one last parting thought, perhaps. I'm getting the... Okay. Well, how about this? You can go either way you want with this. Our last question that we wanted to touch on, and there's actually many, but with the play, we want to touch on loss of childhood, loss of innocence. In the play, Eva becomes a caretaker for her siblings, one of whom is undocumented. So technically, she's not supposed to be a mom or a caretaker at that time. And one of her brothers has a DUI, and he's undocumented, which if you're undocumented is going to complicate your life tremendously. If you're a U.S. citizen, it's a different ball game. Is this fair? Are the immigration laws fair? What is our role as communities to do something about that? What's the role of the government to do something about that? And what can actually be done about those sort of situations? Anybody like to start with that? I know. We try to get it all in on the third one.
Okay, I'll tackle it first. First of all, dialogue. Get all the parties together and try to come up with a plan to meet and to convene and to assemble, and then come up with some type of plan and go to the legislatures, to the presidents, flood the Senate, the House. I mean, with letters. Okay, we want comprehensive reform. Put pressure on the politicians that refuse to take a look at it. I think it's a grassroots effort because we're grassroots people. So it has to start there. But we're going to need the legislators also to do their part. So now, dialogue would probably be, in my opinion, the first thing between the two parties. I don't know if it's ever been done. I know they've been struggling it for years and years and years. But again, if we don't start, I mean, how are we going to get it done? So we have to start from the beginning. And the beginning to me is dialogue.
And theoretically, then, it'd be wonderful to come up with fair and just laws that address all this, and that would alleviate a lot of the trauma. So let's cross our fingers. A ver si pasa. Maria, you wanted to say something?
Sure. I think as a society, treating immigrants with dignity and respect always. You know, we never know, like immigrants come here risking everything, leaving their lives behind. And so just treating them how we would anyone. Just realizing that they're here, they're struggling, and if there's anything we can do to support them, then, you know, give them a hand.
That's great.
So earlier we were talking about like immigrants and how they build our roads or our houses, but we have to also realize that immigrants are doctors and nurses and architects and you know, executives and entrepreneurs. And so what we used to think of the immigrant has now changed because a lot of our folks are now going on to do bigger, like more awesome things. One of the dreamers that we work with, he was a paramedic during Harvey, and now he saved people during COVID. And so, you know, when we go get services, we don't ask, hey, do you have papers? And you're gonna, you know, are you a doctor? Do you have papers? But rather we just get the help. And that's one of the things that I think about treating everybody fairly. In terms of, does it take you, you know, you asked a very profound question, does it take your innocence? One of my nephews, he's 13. And the other day we were out on a family vacation and he asked me, you know, Theo, when am I going to be able to petition for my mom and dad? And I'm like, well, mijo, you're 13. You still have a long way to go. And he was like, well, you know, what can I do? And then I started explaining to him in a way he would understand. And what broke my heart is at the end, he asked, well, when I get to that point, can you help me? And he's 13. And I remember when he was, you know, 10, we were driving one of those bus terminals in Southwest, and he freaked out. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, those are the buses that take the people.
Wow.
So when we talk about trauma, and if it does take a child's innocence, it is a very real thing. And those are things that in people's moral compass they have to think about, because these are not immigrant kids. These are U.S. citizen kids that if you deport their parents, you're in essence supporting them. So those are the things that we really have to pay attention to and fix, so that we don't also hurt U.S. citizens who have every single right to be here, like my nieces and nephews.
I think we also forget, you know, I came into this country illegal as well. And I remember when you're young, you don't realize what's going on. You just realize that you're together with your family. And we all, you know, as immigrants come in, you know, want to keep that family unity together. But I remember at one point we would eat, we were so poor, like we didn't have anything, right? And we would, my sister had a job, or somebody had a job at a donut shop. I don't remember what it was, but we would eat the same donuts for like days because we didn't have nothing else to eat. But we never thought about like we're eating this, you know, over and over. We were just like, we're eating it together as a family. And I think sometimes we might not realize, even the third generation, kids see everything. Kids see what the grandparents are doing, the mothers are doing. And I think it's also a little unfair because they take on into that adult responsibility. Then they start implementing that fearful mentality so young. And so they want to step up. So I think what we need to do as a society, as either Latinos or non-Latinos, is really, even in other cultures, mental health is not discussed. that can lead into mental health conditions and illnesses. So that's the part of the thing, it starts with just fear, then that can lead to anxiety, can lead to depression, then can lead to other serious illnesses. So what we need to do is realize and recognize at that moment that those situations are affecting your mental health. So as we are having a dinner or having a conversation, how did this situation make you feel? Let me share your story. I think that was beautiful for you to record it because you're blown away of that trauma. It is traumatic for many people, what they go through. So I think just speaking about it and making it okay to share the feelings and emotions of that what can be, I think that's going to lead to a lot of positive outcomes. So that's one thing that my niece is my sister's only child. And I remember since she was young, she embedded this mentality of saving, because she saw all the struggles that we had seen. And even though she, like, you give them everything at that point, you're like, you don't want to experience what we experienced, but it definitely affects every generation. And so that's one of the things that we need to kind of embrace and know the power of our story. I hear immigrants and all this, but our story is powerful. And our story is of embracing hope and embracing strength, because that's what really motivates us and kind of keeps us going.
And I wanted to add something you said, like, who are the immigrants now? And I've lost track of how many of my Uber drivers are doing something or used to do something amazing in their country where they were from. And I'm a talker, so the moment I get in the car, I'm like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, so, yeah. And I like to find out their
That'll
stories.
get you a 5, though.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, I'm just amazed each time, we go out to dinner or whatever, we have an Uber driver and they start telling, because number one, if they're immigrant, they probably don't have too many people to talk to in the first place, so they gladly share their story. And each time I'm just like, wow, like I don't know the answer to this, but I was like, there's so much hidden talent in our city right now that's doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And if we somehow figured out how to get that talent, it would like totally revolutionize our city, because Houston has immigrants from all over the world. It's not just Mexicans. It's not just anywhere else in Latin America. It's from all over the world. So I don't know the answer to that, but I think it is important that we continue just to like get to know who the population is. And I think it's also important that there's a lot of things happening in the migration field every single day, and neither one of us here, as best to our abilities, can handle all of them. And I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed, because I know I have in the past, of like, am I supposed to be out there too, and over here and over here and over here? Like, I can't. And then you just sit at home and do nothing. So that's not the answer. But I think you should find, what are you good at? Like, for example, for us, it's, dealing with first generation college students, because we know that if we help them, they can go back and help their families. If we help them land a high-tech paying job, then it's not just for them. Now they can help mom and dad, their little sisters. They have access to resources that their family didn't have, because I stayed in my lane and this is what I'm good at and doing that. So I think if you do feel overwhelmed, don't think you have to do every single thing, because even if we put all of our resources together, it might not cover, like even 10% of all the issues going on. So don't get overwhelmed, but find something that you're good at and where you can help.
But we do seem to be talking about the community's responsibility, so that we can't wait for legislatures. Let's do something ourselves.
I mean, and to, just to piggyback off what he said, I mean, I think it's a great thing that this is a great experience, by getting all of us together, because we all have something to bring to the table to help our community. And if we, and at the end of the day, like, we all have, the end, we want the same end result, And so, if we all focus, like you said, on what, we can provide, and we all do it together, I think that, again, it's not the answer, but at least we can come closer to it. I mean, and we all have values and morals, and at the end of the day, we're human. We're all human. It doesn't matter where we come from, and so we don't want to see someone in need, and if we can provide, we're going to,
Well, I tell you what, there may be someone who's watching this who may be thinking about, maybe I should go see a play. Nunca he ido, me da pena, no estoy vestido bien. Maybe we can go around quickly and everybody sell it, because you're coming. I know you're all coming, right? ¿Verdad? There's someone out there that only you can convince. But wait, Kathy is giving me a signal. Hold that thought. Kathy, what you got?
No, I'm just going to let everyone know that as you are doing this last little sales pitch, we actually do have a discount code and information about the show that's going to come up on the screen for the viewers at home.
Fantastic. That's awesome. We appreciate that. We hope people will take advantage of that. And if everything we've said and done has not touched your heart or convinced you to tell todos tus amigos y tu familia, we're about to close the deal. So we'll start at the end. I'm sorry. Fair enough. Fair enough. She wants to buy time. So why should people come see the play? Because it's just a play. Here we are talking about deep issues.
But it's pertinent. It's pertinent to what's happening in our community and our society. I've really had my eyes open. This panel is amazing. And it's touched my heart. Mental health, we're talking. Medical, we're talking. I mean, we can't, like you said, we can't figure it all out, but we can sure start up dialogue, and we can sure work together to try to address some of these issues and make it just a little bit easier for our community.
Well, I appreciate you let it touch your heart. You're expressing it because you always do something about it too. So
Absolutely.
that means a lot.
So like I said earlier, I was undocumented for 22 years, and there were a lot of aspects in the play that I completely related to, like having that fear that your parents would be deported. My dad was actually in a deportation. I'm sorry. He was actually in a deportation center for 3 months.
No, thank you for sharing it from your heart, for sharing it with us, for being strong for us and reminding us that we're talking about real life situations. Y del corazón. No, para nada. No. Totalmente el corazón. That's what this, we're talking about, being catharsis, being brave. This is what this is
there
about.
were lots of things that I felt like it was part of my life. So definitely recommend that you watch it.
Thank you for all that you do and for making all of us proud.
It's a beautiful story. I would say come with, as many family members as you want, or bring someone that's not maybe understanding this world, because this can also share just a perspective of what we go through. So bring someone that you might not even think it's part of your Latino culture, or an immigrant. Bring someone that's completely new to this world, and I think that would be amazing, because I just reading about it just was amazingly touched what you're saying. We share a lot of the same story.
La otra cosa es que, pues, el venue también es aquí en downtown, se pueden venir a arreglar, hacen una cita y todo, llegan, y pues para nuestra comunidad, por eso estoy muy agradecido de lo que hace Valdemar aquí, porque mi familia nunca, pasábamos por downtown nomás I-10 y nomás mirábamos los edificios, saber de que ya está alguien aquí, una organización con el Zócalo y todos los que estamos aquí, de que el trabajo es de que no, hay que traer a nuestra gente aquí. En México, nomás de allí, está el Palacio de las Bellas Artes. Pasan unas cosas increíbles ahí para los que dicen, no, pero eso no es de mi... No, sí, está toda una comunidad entera, y quizás no existía muy grande aquí ahorita, pero gracias como al Zócalo y ALLÁ Theater, que están poniendo estas producciones, tráiganse a la abuelita a todos, porque sí es diferente. Quizás nunca han entrado a uno de estos edificios y no tienen que venirse con un vestido gala ni nada así, ¿verdad? Como si van a la iglesia. Pues nos dicen, sí, lleguen aquí y pues disfruten de algo diferente, porque va a ser algo diferente para sus familias, para sus nietos, para todos los niños, y pues a pesar de lo que se trata la obra, que es de la inmigración y las conversaciones que van a haber allí.
Bueno, hay que tirarle flores a Valdemar. So hats off to Valdemar Rodriguez. He is Community Engagement Manager for the ALLÁ Theater, and of course, head of the Zócalo Committee, many of which, we're all Zócalos.
Yeah.
We are all Zócalos. But don't take it for granted, because years ago, that wasn't the big push. Now you have the director, Rob Melrose. He's not just bringing in plays with Spanish titles. He's bringing in Nuestra gente para dirigir, Nuestra gente para actuar. He's empowering us to get the community out. We really want to make them feel at home, and it takes a lot of work. So thanks for remembering that. Thanks to ALLÁ Theater for that.
And so also someone in the audience mentioned, how can we have these tough, difficult conversations? Use this as your platform. Bring if there's someone that you want to, talk to about, bring them to this play. And once you've watched it, open up the conversation. And that's a perfect way of doing it.
Voy a dar un comercial en español porque es importante.
Por favor, para que se
si,
anime el
si ustedes
público.
están viendo esto en su casa, compártanlo, hablen de lo bueno que está pasando aquí en el Alley Theater, con todo este play y lo demás. No se sientan intimidados de venir. Yo sé que a veces muchos decimos, voy a ir al downtown. No, está muy lejos. No, pero cuando se invitan a la carnita asada o a la quinceañera o a la boda, ya estamos. Traten esto como si fuera la carnita asada. Hay muchos restaurantes aquí donde pueden ir antes o después a tener una buena oportunidad con su familia. Hay parking aquí afuera. Hay valet si eres bougie. Por favor, vengan y estén aquí para think. I want to thank the Alley Theater, especially, Kathy, Valde, all the people who are making this possible. Because, like Tony said a couple of years ago, we this was unheard of, right? But as time is going, we're making the Alley Theater more accessible to the community, and we want to go. And I want to make a commitment. First 10 students to sign up. I want to sponsor them to come to see this play. I want them to be here because it's important to have these conversations. So we'll figure out a way if there's 10 students out there, or if you're a teacher and you have 10 students that want to come, FIEL wants to sponsor y'all to be able to come see this play and to let your friends know about what's happening here at the Alley Theater. So I want to make sure that everybody come see this. I will be here. I'll be here multiple times. I already told my mom, my tia, my wife, my mom's wife, everybody, my wife's mom, excuse me, that we're gonna come and see this play as a family, so we can share this, and we can really all take part in the great things that are happening here at the Alley Theater.
I appreciate that. So I want to say it one more time. So, artivist and activist, FIEL is sponsoring 10 students. So if you're at the computer board right now, if you're watching, we didn't plan this, so he got inspired by it. Surprise. And he did it before he knew we had the discount code. So use the discount code anyway, por favor. Por favor. Because that is great if you can get a group of young people. And right now, please take advantage of it so that, one, it's going to show that there is support. It's going to inspire young leaders like Cesar to say, hey, nos anima, because people take them up on it. But can you imagine the story those 10 students are going to have to say? Like, first time I went to the theater, it was, I didn't want to go. And then they're going to have this wonderful experience.
Absolutely.
So that's fantastic. Of course, a lot of partners to thank. The Alley Theater, the Zocalo Comité, Valdemar Rodriguez, and then, of course, the National Endowment for the Arts. This is happening because of a major grant in a program called the Big Read. What they do is they ask everybody in the country to submit grant requests. So the fact that the Alley Theater received this is a big deal. Also, shout out to Lone Star College Houston North, where I'm a professor. They also received one at the same time. I mention that because Houston, very few cities have two institutions to receive these major grants. And that includes programming like this, getting the word out, free books, making our community feel at home. And it takes all those folks to work together to try and get our community into the theater. But you know what's going to be great? There are youth who are going to grow up, and it's just another wonderful experience at the theater. They'll be getting their own stories told. They'll be arguing, I don't know if I should be a poet or a novelist. I think playwright's more my thing, but and then everybody wins. I'm going to take a cue from Kathy. Kathy, how much more time do we have left? And she's holding up 2 more hours. Two more minutes, okay. So how about this in closing? Everybody, if you can go around and give your website, your name one more time, and your website, especially Cesar, because he's going to be sponsoring some folks, but name and your organization, website, how people can track you, especially as role models, right? I mean, this doesn't have to be transactional. You got some young leaders here who can inspire your students or family and friends.
Right. So again, my name's Marianne Brown, and I am the founder of Raíces Unidas. And you can find Raíces Unidas on social media. We are very active on Facebook, so it would be facebook.com/Raíces Unidas. Or you can contact us. You can call us at 346-441-8665. And we're here to, if you know of any families that are in need of any type of resource, whether it be legal advice, clothing, food, childcare, any type of service, reach out to us. We will do our best to find that resource and connect the family to the resource. Also mentorship for our young students out there. If they're needing mentorship, we're here to serve.
Cesar Espinosa with FIEL Houston. You can visit our website at fielhouston.org. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, at FIEL Houston. Find us there, connect with us, ask questions. You can find a list of our services, including a legal clinic, access to different resources. We just got partnered up with the county, to do rental assistance for folks. So
Excellent.
you can find a lot of resources on our website, on our social media. So please connect with us, and we look forward to serving y'all. Also, text message and phone calls at 713-364-3435, 713-364-3435, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, Saturdays, 9 to 3.
Excellent.
I know. Well, I don't know my whole Google page like you do on there, but otra vez, no, mi nombre es José Ábalos, soy presidente y cofundador de Creative Vida. You can search Creative Vida as 2 words on all the social media platforms over there. Y nuestra página web es creativevida.org, creativevida.org. So you'll find us there.
Maria Kavanagh with the University of Houston Hispanic Alumni Association, and we're really active on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at UH Hispanic Alumni. And if you're a University of Houston student, Latino, and you need some scholarship money, email us and or apply for the scholarships.
Beautiful. Oh, here. Hi. Al Castillo. I'm president of LULAC Council 60 here in Houston. We're on Facebook, or you can call me at 832-455-1867. I'm really excited about being here. I'm really excited about really having a discussion with these young people, and with you, Tony. So
Hey, I'm young.
with Baldy over there, because I think we've made some inroads. It's certainly opened my eyes. So yeah, and I just want to say thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
Mi nombre es Carmen Martinez, directora de desarrollo para NAMI, la Alianza Nacional sobre las Saludes Mentales. Nuestra información es bien fácil, es NAMI, N-A-M-I, Greater Houston. Cualquier cosa que ustedes necesitan, ayudas, apoyos, todos nuestros recursos son completamente gratis. Nos pueden llamar al 713-970-4481. Estamos en todas las redes sociales, en Facebook, en Instagram, NAMI Greater Houston, y la página de internet es namigreaterhouston.org.
And shout out to Gracie Signs, who's sitting there. For first Latina elected citywide. Thank you to the whole ALLY staff. You can't see them, but the ALLY staff is like presente. They got an army there. And I'm Tony Diaz, a Libro Traficante. Really privileged and honored to handle the mic, because I ain't smarter than any of these folks, or younger, if you want to go there, Al. But it gives me great joy to convene with all of you at this major institution for theater in the Western Hemisphere, not just regionally, but internationally. But it's our house. So thank you for joining us. Please pick up a book. Please enjoy the big read, and let's applaud the huge success that we're going to see for 72 miles to go. Gracias.